Hi and welcome back to our mini-series where we're going to show you some hints and tips around getting the best out of Microsoft Excel. Many businesses use it and this is your chance to learn new skills and wow the people around you with new Excel knowledge. Today we're going to cover more of the advanced skills around pivot tables. In a previous video we covered creating a pivot table and some of the basic skills. Today we're going to drill further into creating your own and changing the sum and the average and some of the calculation fields. Right, let's start by creating ourselves a blank pivot table. So we choose a cell, I'm going to go with O3 and click on the Insert tab, and in this occasion I'm going to choose Pivot Table and choose Pivot Table there. So again, it's going to ask us for a range, so I'm going to choose the headings of my table and I use Shift, Control and down, that will highlight my entire table. And in comparison to the recommended pivot tables, it asks us where we want to put it. So I'm going to keep it on this particular sheet, but I could choose to put it on a new worksheet if I wanted to. And I'm going to press OK. And where this differs from the recommended pivot table is that it creates us, where I asked it to, a blank pivot table. And we now have control over what fields we want to put in there. So I'm going to drag it in regions into my rows and you can see that it's updating live. I'm going to drag in service into my columns and we may want to see total cost as an example. So let's grab total cost and we drag it into values. We've basically got four sections that are available to us. We've got the rows, which are the rows down the left. We've got the columns, which are the columns that go along the top. The values are the values that sit as the matrix between rows and columns, but we can also add a filter. So if we add a filter, let's add in technician. You can see at the top here we get a filter and we could then say, oh, I want to see Khan, and you can see that the pivot table is actively changing based on those selections. If we just take that out and say all again. So now we're back to our beginning where we've got our technicians filtered to all, we've got our regions on the left and we've got our services on the right. We may want to, I don't know, we could add technicians to our rows and we could have a drop down, and you can see again we're actively changing our data. It's fast and furious in this point, and because we've chosen values we've got this grand total. So some of the more advanced things we can do is under the values section we can drop it down and we can change our value field settings. So it might be that we want an average. So we can say average of total cost. So these values are now changing and they're averaging out at hundreds of pounds rather than thousands of pounds. And looking at that there's a lot of decimal places. So we probably want to tidy that up to 2 decimal places for pence. So if we go again into our value field settings and number format, and we want to say currency. So currency comes with 2 decimal places. And press OK. So you can see how we're immediately getting better quality data. If we were to now change that back to sum, you can see that it's a lot clearer how much it's changing. One of the final things I want to show you is, because we're talking about values, we've got a grand total in the column and we've also got a grand total in the rows. So what I want to do is probably remove one of those. I'm going to remove the grand total in the rows. So we right click the heading. We've got pivot table options. And under totals and filters, I'm going to take the show grand totals for columns off and press OK. And we can see at the bottom, we have no totals here at the bottom. And by clicking out of our pivot table, the pivot table fields settings disappear. But by going back into it, we get them back. So you can easily make those changes. Thank you for joining us in our Excel series. Tune in next time where we'll be covering more features, more functions, and more formulas. Thank you.